Alright, YouTubers, going to post a little data here on my Windmax 1000 watt turbine, 24 volts. What I've got installed here is the 1000 watt version of popular Chinese grid tie inverter here, and kind of experimenting on the results. I had a bad 500 watt version of this. This is the lower voltage version, the 10 to 30 I think it is about. I've got the larger one coming in, the 22 to 60 volt, 1000 watt, but for now I've just got this hooked up, and as you can hear, the fan's running. Pretty warm day out here in the Great Plains, 91, 92, breaking records all the way back to 1940. So just going to look at some numbers here. We'll go out and look at the turbine setup, but we've got the good old kilowatt on the right. I've got the in-speed wind reading in the middle, and then reading the volts with the meter on the left. This isn't a separate app, by the way, for the in-speed. This is some software for Android called Phone My PC. I think there's actually versions of it for all sorts of phone systems, but basically it's a way to remotely access your computer. So actually what this is just part of the desktop. I have an always-on computer. I've fooled around with some X10 home automation, and Phone My PC has been really good for me. It locks up every once in a while, but for this, it's perfect. So basically, I've just got the in-speed, whatever called Windware running on my desktop, and I've just zoomed in on that to get that reading. Well, let's go outside here. Kind of a variable day. There's the Windmax in action. I think today there's something to be said for some people have raised the point about benefiting from a larger tail there. I wouldn't say it's been turning out of the wind, but it's kind of a variable wind today. We got a storm system coming in, and I don't know, my experience with these turbines is pretty minimal. I'm learning a lot, so I don't know if this is a pretty good gust. Probably in the low 20s right there. But I don't know how much these are supposed to compensate for variable wind days. So there have been some really good gusts where I haven't seen the kind of readings I would have liked. So I don't know if there's some truth to that in certain wind conditions, this will turn away from the wind. So maybe I'll chat with some folks, think about adding on a slightly larger tail, because it does seem to be moving around a little bit more than I would like. But you can see the vortex anemometer there in the front. Yes, this is not an ideal location. I get that. It's fairly dirty wind in some ways. And I'll change that long term, but I thought I'd at least post some numbers up. But that the wind turbine's definitely moving a little bit out of the wind. Let me get out of the wind. But you can see the vortex sensor is below the turbine. It's probably getting, if anything, less wind than the turbine itself. So let's look at some readings here. It's kind of tough, I know, with the light on the camcorder here. It really wants to focus on the light level of the phone. 21 volts, 180. 170. One of the problems too, it's hard to get a correlation, it seems. I mean, there's a lag on some of this data. I assume the in-speed lags a little bit there, so it's sort of tough to eyeball the numbers and see what you're looking at and how that corresponds. It's even tougher when I've been doing it remotely using the TED system. I'm not really sure how accurate the TED system is compared to the kilowatt. It seems to be giving me slightly higher readings on both my solar and my wind, but I'll just sit here a minute. Like I said, it's been kind of variable. We've gotten a 36 mile an hour gust, but I didn't get anywhere close to the maximum watts I would have thought for that. I think my peak for all of today has been a little over 500 watts. So I'm not sure if that's the point at which this grid tie inverter goes into overvolt. Maybe we'll see here as we look at this. I'll probably come back a couple times this afternoon and we'll revisit these numbers, see if things are changing much. But at least this is providing some data points for some folks. Apparently this model of grid tie inverter is not as commonly used as some of the others. A couple folks have either stuck with the larger voltage inverter and just run with that, the whatever 22 to 60 or whatever that is, and have just given up some of the wind on the low end. Larry and some others, or maybe just him, have set up a very creative system using 2 grid tie inverters and a wind switch, which may well be what I end up doing as well. I haven't done that yet, but that's why I got the in-speed sensor, just to get some accurate wind data too. So the fact that this grid tie inverter isn't seeing as much use as some of the others, some folks had expressed an interest in getting some data points to see if it more or less functions in the same way as its smaller 500 watt brother, cousin, or something different. So who knows? Looks like we've got a little system coming in. Like I said, maybe we'll get some stronger gusts there and we can see if we can push this close to overvolt. If it's overvolted yet, it's not real apparent. I've got the dump load hooked up here. Yeah, it's a little warm, but actually as I touch these others, I think it's just the sun on the side of the shed here. It's a warm day. So actually, yeah, I don't think that's any warmer than the ones that aren't hooked up there, so I don't think it's gone into overload. But as you saw from the video of the turbine, it does seem to be flipping around a little more than usual. But in fairness, that's what the wind's doing. So like I said, I'm not sure what's a reasonable expectation as far as the smaller turbines to be able to handle, sort of multi-directional wind. It's certainly not something that when the wind has been constant at my location, it turns out of the wind like a furling system. I've got plenty of examples so far where that certainly hasn't happened. But on a day like today where it's kind of wind from the north and then from the west and everything in between, it's kind of flip-flopping between those. So I guess it's kind of odd. I was seeing much better numbers the other day. I mean, look at that, 23 miles an hour and not even 64 watts there. So it's strange. I don't know if, again, that's more of the variability in that turbine flopping around, but it just doesn't seem to be able to get up the RPMs today. On other days, when the wind was more constant, didn't have a problem, but today it's certainly not putting out the watts that it has before. So maybe I will look into that tail modification of some type. Alright, signing off for now. We'll come back later. Wind changes up a little bit, get some more data.